Rowley, a dog. Low high the crime rate is in the country now, boy. Forest, come down, come down. Imbu, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue. I don't want to leave you on top the horse. I need you to come down here for me now. You're claiming B&M them is boss, but look how high the crime rate is now. B&M feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Make me choke with that vibe. Champa, go to them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there. I just want to warn you before the mixing would concern you. They went like keto and one voodoo for the people and them to vote you. On the IG post you look nice. A million followers, a million likes. In the grocery the food price high. Give we 2% and feed we with lie. That man can mama guy. You feel it too bright. Yeah, we need election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Take me to pay that vice. Calling in with them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there. Hands up when you come down. You're going on the beat of the mama guy, poor people. Good you get wet down. Champa always in a zest. Least for development in a mess. Coming get the government credit card arrest. Remember when you buy all the wig and dress? Comments are millions if you check. Tell the people them how you get it. B&M government them on it. Every minute them would raise the budget. B&M government them on it. Suffer poor people in pandemic. B&M government them on it. Give we 2% then they laugh at it. B&M government them on it. Them on it. B&M feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Me choke with that vice. Champa go to them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Rowley, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue. Forest, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue. Rohan, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue. Imbut, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue. B&M feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Take me choke with that vice. Champa go to them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there. I just want to warn you before the mixing would concern you. They went like keto and one voodoo for the people and them to vote you. On the IG post you look nice. A million followers, a million likes. In the grocery the food price high. Give we 2% and feed we with lie. That man can mama. B&M feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Make me choke with that vibe. Champa go to them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Rowley, a dog. Low high the crime rate is in the country now, boy. Forest, come down, come down. Imbut, come down, come down. UNC, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue, in tongue. I don't want to leave you on top the horse. I need you to come down here for me now. You're claiming B&M them is boss, but look how high the crime rate is now. B&M feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there, Rowley. Make me choke with that vibe. Champa go to them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Come down from there. I just want to warn you before the mixing would concern you. They went like keto and one voodoo for the people and them to vote you. On the IG post you look nice. A million followers, a million likes. In the grocery the food price high. Give we 2% and feed we with lie. That man can mama guy. You feel it.
Yes, indeed, of course, you would realize that, of course, there was a break in transmission, but I am determined, and of course, if we have to go beyond 10 o'clock, well, so be it. We have to, of course, ventilate, extrapolate, and, of course, in totality, express our sincere analytical position on this, of course, what I consider to be collapse of the P&M and the government of King Christopher Rowley, and of course the calling of a state of emergency at the end of the year, the literal and virtual end of the year. That is the level of desperation incompetence and failure. And before you call elections, you're talking about a state of emergency. Hold all the tail. We will, of course, talk until the day of elections. 39 seats in Trinidad. 39 seats are up for grabs in Trinidad for the UNC and Kamala Persad-Bissessar. They could say what they want. Once again, of course, my apology for that break earlier, but it was due to circumstances beyond my control. But of course, we are back up and we will conclude tonight's program with a B section. All right, people? So, tell a friend, join, share, and make certain, of course, that you are fully aware as to what is at stake, what the stakes are, and of course, the fact that the PNM government has collapsed.
The Crowley gave us promises to the sky, but I support him UNC till the day that I die. There's only anti-Kamala could come and save we. So go out and vote. We vote in UNC. Time to go. It's time to go. I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for all them politicians, and I dig in their grave, no fuck with me hand. I find some of them, they living too long, and every 5 years is the same old song. Some of them dead, just shame to lie down, so I prepare for them a burial.
Joining us to discuss the state of emergency is opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley.
Deal with a gang and this sovereign state, this independent state with a serious national security machinery end up with a state of emergency.
That's what he said, criticizing, of course, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, but he has ended up with a state of emergency based on the same issue that he was vehemently opposing back in 2011, 1 year after the Kamala Persad-Bissessar came into office. But let's hear what transpired recently, only today.
The rationale and the purpose that we would have considered in the decision that was taken to place Trinidad and Tobago in a state of public emergency.
The declaration and the calling of a public state of emergency is not something that should be taken lightly, or something that this government certainly takes lightly at all.
One last thing. In 2012, when the Prime Minister would have occupied the opposition benches at that time, he made a statement then that if the government can't deal with crime, then the government itself is part of the problem. It's 12 years later, and we're seeing, of course, the problem is worse, and we're seeing higher, murder stats.
This, of course, is Rowley as Prime Minister.
That standard now, can you say, sitting there, are you willing, as Minister of National Security, can you accept that pronouncement now? Because we're seeing the figures going up. We're seeing that fear, the trauma, the fear is there. So can you now, judging by what he would have said then, going with that?
As Akash Samaru alluded to in one of his interventions earlier, that which you have described is not new. Those of us who have been around long enough, we would have seen this kind of upsurge from time to time. So all we are doing here today is...
Now notice the level of what I consider to be obfuscation, the level of semantics, the level of circumlocution, the level of hogwash, in other words, as if he wasn't trained as a lawyer, and I had to question that. The question was a direct one. How do you reconcile the fact that Rowley was talking about, of course, a government that cannot control crime, is itself a part of the problem, and they therefore should make its exit summarily? And here it is. He is saying that that's not a new problem. The man, like he's sleeping there, that narcoleptic, indolent Minister of National Security, purportedly so. Purportedly. Because he is now called the bearer of death, just as, of course, Rowley's Minister of Health, bearers of death, and Rowley himself, of course, the consummate bearer of death. Death, 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 all over this place. And pretending, of course, he doesn't understand the question. I want to say it is deliberate. Because they believe that all of us are asses. Let's hear this, of course, sleepy, lazy fella.
Is presenting to you, the national community, what the response from law enforcement will be in relation to the upsurge that is traumatizing the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Of course, this was a previous press conference, not to today's. Today will come later, but I'm just giving you the history as we move towards, of course, what transpired today. We'll have that at the ending of this particular video. But he was saying that months ago.
Today, suppressing it, eradicating it where it is possible, using the laws and the Constitution and the tremendous experience and hard work of the police service, supported by the Defence Force. And as Minister Scotland urged, the personal responsibility that we expect from every single right-thinking citizen who complain about this, who are affected by it, that we all in the whole of government, whole of society context, where we, the government, in last year, I think it was, or year before, last year, identified this crime problem as a public health concern and treating it as such. So the comments by my colleague about the whole of government approach and
crime in Trinidad and Tobago is not just murder. Very same thing that a thieving minister is doing, that is trying to get money that he should not be having.
Of course, Rowley is the consummate thief in that regard. Listen to Rowley again.
And the Constitution and the tremendous experience and hard work of the police service, supported by the Defence Force. And as Minister Scotland urged, the personal responsibility that we expect from every single right-thinking citizen who complain about this, who are affected by it, that we all in the whole of government, whole of society context, where we, the government, in last year, I think it was, or year before, last year, identified this crime problem as a public health concern and treating it as such. So the comments by my colleague about the whole of government approach and
crime in Trinidad and Tobago is not just murder. Very same thing that a thieving minister is doing, that is trying to get money that he should not be having.
The time has come for us to declare violence as a public health emergency. For us to declare violence as a public health emergency.
The homicide rate in TNT in 2019 was 29.3 per 100,000. 29.3 dead, murder, per 100,000. And that is higher than the global average. The global average is 6.1 per 100,000. Look how way up. Only this last week, Trinidad and Tobago has now been relegated in the top 7 most violent criminal country in the world. We are put at number 6 under this Rowley government. And this man comes today and has nothing to tell us. Then, remember Rowley saying this. He says, if the government cannot deal with crime, then the government is part of the crime. What do you say now, Mr. Rowley? The parents. You don't want to blame parents. Violent crime under this Rowley government. Every time, if you look at the stats, I think some of them be shared. Every time the PNM is power, what happens? Every time the PNM is in power, crime rises. Every single time. And as Anita told us, they have been in government for the longest time in our country. And so today, across our country, we are living in fear. Our nation is under siege. On the last PNM government, Muriel told you, All the serious crimes in the country, you remember? Bad as that was, then it became a new kind of wave of kidnappings, new crimes. Well, just told us that. Now all the regular serious crimes, and on top of that, what? Home invasions. What a horrifying place we are now. Rampant home invasion. This morning, Mr. Rowley was busy fighting crime. The only way he knows how to fight crime. Talk, talk, and more talk. And tomorrow will be talk, talk, and more talk. And going on 8 years, all they've been doing is talk, talk, talk. But I want to tell you, we will not only just talk the talk, the UNC will walk the walk to deal with crime in Trinidad and Tobago. They have closed down all the training opportunities. When you listen to Anita, all the schools closed down, all the job opportunities. When you do that, what's going to happen? You see, again, you need Panadol, yes, you don't have a job. But what is really, really wrong, it is what we call a socio-economic problem. But I don't think they understand those kinds of words. That is why our society is in decay. That is why our economy has collapsed. And their way to fight it is to bring all these people here after 8 years and not give us one idea. I listened then and I listened after because they were carried live. At the end of the day, not one plan, not one policy, no plan, total incompetence. And so that fancy symposium, propaganda, to take us away, as Rudy said, from remembering. I just said, don't forget, we must always remember their incompetence, their inability to govern. So while they talk and talk and talk, people are under siege. The next thing he did was to blame USA manufacturers. What's saying is them making gun. Let me ask you something. Are these manufacturers making motor cars too? Don't motor cars kill people? What do you do? Ban these manufacturers? What cutlass and knife? Huh? What about Gramaxone? You see how ridiculous it is that you're blaming the US when you cannot lock down your own borders. You cannot prevent these things from coming. That's your job. What you want the US to do?
I want to call on the bishop to call on his colleagues to assume a greater responsibility in calling on the national community, especially parents, to take responsibility for their progeny.
Unless we enlist the help of God, we will be working in vain. Unless we enlist the help of God, we will be working in vain.
Call on the Prime Minister to do something about crime. I'm not in your bedroom, I'm not in your choice of men.
Well, I want to say, oh gosh, like God has abandoned us. If the Commissioner of Police was relying, of course, on God, because, of course, we know as students of the Bible that He helped those who help themselves. So you must help yourself and expect, of course, that because Rowley has put the lowest ranking in terms of the evaluation and the shortlisting of the police service commissions, a group of nominees for the post, a person who ranked 12th, who came out in 12th in the interview. I mean, come on. And in spite, of course, our difficulty with Gary Griffith, clearly, I'm certain that the situation will not be one as it is today if Rowley was not more concerned with his manipulation of the office of the commissioner, the person who holds the office. And of course, if a commissioner was resistant to reciprocating by groveling to, of course, an incompetent criminal that has invaded and captured the office of Prime Minister. I'm talking about Keith Christopher Rowley, a total rapist and pedophile.
losing the war against the criminal
Listen to him
element,
now.
but you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.
Your vote will decide our destiny. Your vote will decide what you want to be. Your vote can foretell our country's fate. Move and use it well before it's too late.
The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe. You're losing the war against the criminal element, but you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.
Of course, we have had enough of what we have had enough of them, and we will vote the tails out. That's what we will do. That's what we have to do. That's what the Constitution says. That is our right. We have hired them, and we'll fire the tails.
Of mafia, bubble and corruption. Home of them big liars, big thieves of millions of dollars. Don't trust none of them. None of them is a real problem. They're doing what they want, so they be fucked up them. We not voting, them fucking CNN. We not voting, them fucking CNN. King Rowley, King Imbert, King Forrest, King Stuart, living high, dictatorship style.
Rowley saying this. He says, if the government cannot deal with crime, then the government is part of the crime. What do you say now, Mr. Rowley? The parents. You don't want to blame parents.
When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself. When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself.
Rowley saying this. He says, if the government cannot deal with crime, then the government is part of the crime. What do you say now, Mr. Rowley? What do you say now, Mr. Rowley? What do you say now, Mr. Rowley?
He's saying that he's a power mongerer and will stay in office in spite of his incompetence, impotence, and of course, irregardless of the moral position that he would have taken. In other words, he lied it to the people, and it's time to blast it go.
Now is the time for Crowley to go. It's only Kamla with fixed Trinidad. Time to go, time to go, time to go. It's time to go. Look, now is the time for Crowley to go. It's only Kamla could save Trinidad. It's only Kamla could save Trinidad. It's only Kamla could save Trinidad.
The rationale.
Let's hear now, of course, let's bring to today what transpired. Listen to what Hines and Young had to say.
In the decision that was taken to place Trinidad and Tobago in a state of public emergency.
The declaration and the calling of a public state of emergency is not something that should be taken lightly, or something that this government certainly takes lightly at all. The current circumstances that dictated and mandated the necessity of this extreme action that we took this morning with Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, based on our advice, declaring via proclamation a state of emergency in the wee hours of this morning, was based on information provided to us by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Over the last month or so, and in fact building up to this, the government has been concerned about the use of high-powered illegal firearms, high-caliber firearms, including automatic weapons that unfortunately are scourged throughout the whole Caribbean region. And due to the high velocity and high caliber weapons, the 5.56 and the 7.62 caliber weapons, you're seeing...
Let's pause there for a moment. Listen to this, what I consider to be intellectually depraved and a consummate deceiver that was known to this government from time immemorial. That is how long ago that was. Ever so often, on a regular basis, Rowley will talk about high-powered ammunition. You will talk about it. Hines will talk about it. And now the recent addendum, of course, Scotland. Suddenly, you see it sufficiently important to call a state of emergency, and then, of course, trying to put the rest of the Caribbean. Hold on, let tell. That is for the sycophants and them, not for people who know and who are conscious and who are aware and will tell the people that you know about it all the time. And you will come and philosophize and give us statistics about all what you know, but doing nothing about it, and have not been able to allay the fears. And all we are demanding of you to call a blasted election and not call a state of emergency.
That when the miscreants in our society, the criminal element, are utilizing these types of weapons, the AR-15s, the AK-47s, and indiscriminately shooting at persons, sometimes missing their targets and hitting innocent bystanders, there is very little chance of survival due to the velocity and the caliber of these weapons. This has been a major concern, not only for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the whole CARICOM region.
Utilizing CARICOM and, of course, using it as a rational, a reference point, is to placate, is to make you accept the incompetence and impotence. It's billions of dollars are spent on an annual basis on national security. They have the juggernaut. This has nothing to do with St. Vincent, Dominica, Montserrat, or Barbados. It has to do with your incompetence, your inability to manage. Put at your disposal all that money, the entire treasury, and you cannot deliver, and looking to stay in office and making all kinds of flippant and what I consider to be asinine excuses.
In the last 48 hours, there was firstly, and where I'm focusing on, are two incidents that were drawn to our attention, and Minister Hines will get into some level of detail at the end. You will recall that on Saturday, just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, outside of the Besson Street Police Station, there was a shooting with the use of a high-caliber automatic weapons. 5.56 shells were recovered afterwards, where one person at the end of it, right outside the Besson Street Police Station, lay dead, and another escaped an attempt on his life.
That's not the first time. A similar incident happened outside the Belmont Police Station. A similar incident happened outside or just on the periphery of the Port of Spain General Hospital. When did you know about these things? And you knew about it in 2015, you knew about it in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and at the end of 2024, today, December 30th, you are now deciding to take action, and the people must not penalize on their tail. For I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, you must encourage your parents and you young people who are not yet registered to vote. Once you are 18 years, you are entitled. Once you are a citizen of this country, get it to the ID card or the EBC's office, Election and Boundaries offices, wherever it is, Port of Spain, Arima, San Fernando, etc., and register to vote. The country you are now called upon to save is Trinidad and Tobago, your own. We will be clearly out of it before you. That is the chronology of and the biology of the human being. So we are expected to go because we are older than you, before you. But you will have to stay here under the morass, under the shambolism that this government has pledged the country in, will last for a very long time. If you do not go out there, next year is of course elections, and of course register your disapproval and your agreement that it is only Kamala Prasad Bisasa, the UNC, having regard to their track record 2010 to 2015, could save Trinidad and Tobago. Not these vipers, and let the chips fall where they may in terms of course, blue lights and silver bracelets. This is unacceptable, untenable, and cannot be countenanced in a civilized society that has a respect for democracy, the rule of law, and the, of course, peaceful change of government. They are fighting, of course, to generate animosity and pain and ache and agony and stress by staying in office and antagonizing the population in that way.
Person being Calvin Lee, who is well known to the law enforcement agencies of Trinidad and Tobago. Within 24 hours thereafter, there was an incident that took place up in Laventille in the Prisgar lands of Laventille, where 6 people were targeted and shot, 5 of whom were then deceased, 1 on the scene and 4 others at the Port of Spain General Hospital a short while later. All intelligence and the information provided to us by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is this was a reprisal shooting, and that there can be expected heightened reprisal activities by the criminal elements in and around certain places in Trinidad and Tobago that immediately warranted and took us out of what we can consider the norm. Is that at this stage, the government has taken the decision there is not going to be any.
The norm has been that there has been higher than the national average murders in Trinidad and Tobago since 2019 under this government. What is the norm? It is normal to have 2 and 3 murders a day. What is the norm that has triggered this sudden? We say to you, the population of Trinidad and Tobago and elsewhere, watch the sinister and the evil and the true intent as it unfolds, as they target, of course, their political enemies, because they know that they must call the elections. You can't tell me that since 2015. So all they wicked and all they deliberately kill people or cause people to die when you could have called a state emergency long before now. Kamala Prasad Bisasa didn't hesitate. She was in 2010, about nearly the half of 2010, and by early 2011, state of emergency, and so that created a situation where the situation was stable until, of course, Rowley came back with the PNM and escalate out of control. And today you're talking about, at this 12th hour, you're talking about what? State of emergency. call election. That is what you should be doing. The PNM has effectively collapsed. And that is why, of course, I'm wearing black tonight, because I want the people to know that the PNM has collapsed, and therefore it's awake. It's awake as we awaken tomorrow. And as inevitable as night gives way today and vice versa, we have a duty, of course, to call on the government. Having been collapsed under the weight of incompetence, impotence, and inability to manage the affairs of the country and to secure the people, they should allow the population to exhale.
Curfew. That decision is because the targeting of this national public state of emergency is on those who engage in criminal activity with criminal intent of endangering the public safety through the use of these illegal firearms, both high velocity as well as illegal handguns and the other likes. Those are the persons who are being targeted by this state of emergency. So, unlike 1990 and unlike the 2011 state of emergency, this state of emergency at this time will have no curfew. It will also not seek to affect public meetings, public gatherings, excuse me, and public marches, as the states of emergency in 1990 and 2011, for some unknown reason, did so affect. This state of emergency
is superior to the one before.
Specifically targeted on the criminal elements and their use and their brazen acts, their use of illegal firearms and their brazen acts of violent criminal activity that are affecting not only the gangs, but also us, the law-abiding citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So there is not going to be any curfew. There is not going to be, at this stage, any restriction on public meetings, public marches, or any meetings of that sort. It is going to be specifically targeted to those engaged in criminal activity. Basically, a state of emergency is the suspension of certain constitutional rights. The police service will be given the powers to search premises without warrants, to search persons without warrants who they have suspicions of carrying out criminal activities, a lot of it associated with illegal firearms, and also to detain persons for periods of time. The regulations are setting out the process and the procedure. We're going to have a 48-hour holding period where persons can be held under these regulations. Thereafter, either a magistrate or a senior police officer can make an order of detention for another 7 days whilst evidence is being gathered with respect to persons held under the state of emergency regulations. There will be, it is targeting the unlawful possession of firearms, ammunition, explosives. Persons who are found in the company of anyone with these items will also be detained. As I said, there will be the power to stop and search by the police. They will be allowed to enter and search premises, to stop and search any vessel, vehicle, or individual, whether in a public space or not. They will be able to arrest without a warrant any person suspected has acted or is acting or is about to act in a manner prejudicial to public safety or to public order, or to have committed or is committing or about to commit an offense against the regulations. It will also suspend the ability for bail in the circumstances where you're detained under these regulations and the public emergency. And additionally, as is normal, as happened in 1990 and 2011, in circumstances where national security dictated the need and mandated the necessity of calling of a public state of emergency, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, under the Chief of Defense Staff, will be put in a ready position to assist and to cooperate with the police service, and a member of the Defense Force, for all purposes of the regulations, will have the powers of a police officer and shall, where acting in accordance with any general or specific special instruction of the Chief of Defense Staff or any superior officer of the force be given such powers. We will be setting up a tribunal. I have been in contact with the acting Chief Justice of Trinidad and Tobago, Justice of Appeal Barrow, and this regulation with the appropriate schedule will be published, as I say, after this press conference.
As Minister Young would have explained and you would have understood, a lot having to do with the type of weapon and the type of ammunition that is in the theater of these conflicts. A lot of it inter-gang, having nothing to do with you and me, but we are traumatized by it as a society, and in many cases we are innocent bystander victims to it.
That we've come here today to deal with this very serious decision that was taken pursuant to Section 8 of the Constitution, based, as you've heard Minister Hines provide some of the evidence in relation to, based on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service intelligence provided to us, that the criminal gangs, via the use of high-powered assault weapons and other illegal firearms in areas of Trinidad and possibly Tobago, are likely to immediately increase their brazen acts of violence in reprisal shootings on a scale so extensive that it threatens persons and will endanger public safety. The regulations will be published in the next few hours. The Prime Minister himself was the one who convened us at the late hours of yesterday into midnight and has been completely in tune and discussing it with both Minister Hines and myself and Her Excellency the President throughout the course of the wee hours of the morning when I'm sure most were asleep.
You said it wouldn't be appropriate, but he's head of the National Security Council, not so. So why isn't it appropriate?
Akash, it is obvious that you hold a different opinion. We are dealing with the facts.
Well, of course, that question, the question was asked, you didn't get it in total. Of course, I'll present it tomorrow on the ground report, but of course, and tomorrow night on the corridor. But of course, he asked the question, why the Prime Minister wasn't there? And of course, Young tried to evade, of course, and obfuscate the question by not answering it, because clearly if the Prime Minister has contemplated a state of emergency, one would have expected, as it is normal for, of course, the head of government to of course tell us that, because you are suspending the rights of the people, and it doesn't matter whether one section of the society has been targeted. The fact of the matter is it is a state of emergency for all, and therefore it will not be considered an abuse if an ordinary citizen who is not, of course, a member of a gang is targeted. There's nothing that person could do in such circumstance, and therefore the Prime Minister suspending, of course, the rights of people to move, the right to speak, and the right, of course, to engage in certain activities that are normal. That is the purpose of a state of emergency, the suspending of your fundamental human rights under the Constitution, and therefore the Prime Minister, in taking that decision, must, of course, be part and parcel of letting the population know. That has been the tradition, whether it be Robinson, whether it be, of course, under Robinson, whether it was under Kamala Prasad Bisesa. And today, of course, we see a Prime Minister who is afraid to face the population, simply because that which he is peddling today was something that he was vehemently opposed when he was in opposition, and like most of the things that he is now implementing on the people, as if, of course, he's an astute student of Machiavelli. Draconian measures after draconian measures. He probably believed that on this occasion it is safer for him to remain definitely silent. Well, we will call on him to make a statement on the matter. These buffoons and these nincompoops and poor representation of any government, far less for, but it's only in the Rowley government such nincompoops could function.
Right here you have the two members of the cabinet who are charged with the responsibility. One, the legal responsibility, i.e. the Attorney General, and two, the responsibility for national security. So let's move on to the questions, please.
Fair enough. The time frame for the
Arrogantly.
SOE will be in the
The
details
time
that
frame
you'll
for the SOE at this stage is pursuant to the Constitution. We will be following that. It is going to be monitored on a daily basis. If
tomorrow morning, of course, on the ground report, we'll talk about the constitutional parameters that and the options that the government has in terms of what the Constitution says. As far as state of emergencies are concerned, there are time-specific requirements, and that, of course, we will also, of course, reference tomorrow night on the corridor transformation.
the ability to lift the state of emergency arises before the constitutional period, it will be so done. As I said at the outset, this government has had the option of calling a state of emergency for the last 10 years and has avoided that option. But now, based on the information that has been brought to us, we see it as fit and necessary to do so.
Most of the nation is watching.
So if you had done it earlier, like Kamala Prasad Bisesa, a lot of lives would have been saved. Yeah. So they are confessing that they had the option and didn't take it. Even though, of course, Kamala Prasad Bisesa was recommended. But no, Rowley was recalcitrant because he knows it all. He is omniscient. And now, of course, with all kind of what I consider to be tutu on his face, egg in his face and in his eyes, he, of course, is afraid, of course, to face the population and to give us the shaming news that he has to call a state of emergency for the purposes of crime and addressing the problem. Notwithstanding that he has, of course, the anti-gang act that he could also act upon or utilize, the police that is, but of course decided the option to suspend all of us rights and then telling us that we are not targeted. Hold all your tail, we know all you. We know all you.
This morning, so for those who aren't too familiar with what the Constitution says, can you just let us know?
In the first instance, as I said, we will be going to Parliament within the next 15 days.
That's what the Constitution
In the
says.
first instance, once it is approved and ratified, so to speak, by the Parliament, it would be for
simple majority
3 months, and then no further extension. A further extension can be sought, but the aggregate cannot extend beyond 6 months.
You said no curfew. You also said that there was some concern about bystanders being hurt and innocent people being hurt in possible reprisal attacks. So if there's the concern for bystanders and innocent people, you also have nothing to limit movement. Why no curfew in that context?
At this decision, the decision is, as I said at the outset, no curfew. We do not want to limit economic activity. We have to have trust and faith in those who have the responsibility for national security, in particular our intelligence services and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, who have been informing us that they know these criminal elements, etc. So what they're being provided with by this measure here today, a state of emergency, is additional powers, including powers where constitutional rights have been suspended for those particular offenders who so far have been able to evade them on occasion. So right now it is to give them the ability to do what they need to do.
Given that the TGPS, they know where these people are and it's going to be a targeted approach, any consideration to maybe implement a curfew or limit movement in those areas just for the protection of the innocent people in those communities?
In 2011, as a practicing attorney, I was faced with a dilemma when the then government claimed to have declared a limited state of emergency, a state of emergency limiting it to certain areas. That is illegal and unconstitutional.
Is arsonist talking? What about Okasipol when Manning had created a limited state of emergency around her house? That is nonsense. There is, of course, a situation that could merit that. There is a situation that could merit that implementation. The man is a total buffoon and nincompoop, a ignoramus. But gone from here, boy. Gone from here, Scott Young. You're misleading the population. Then you have to explain what happened to Okasipol. When Manning wanted, of course, to get his way in the parliament, he put a state of emergency around a house. You say that can happen and it's illegal, and you're laughing sleazily as if you want the population to believe that you're bright. You're a nincompoop.
unconstitutional. A state of emergency is over the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. At this stage, there is no legislation in place, nor are we going to test the legislation to put curfews in specific places. I mean, when you see the regulations, you will see that that is an acknowledgement. The government has never shied away from that. As you would have heard, and this morning is not the place, you would have heard both the Minister of National Security as well as the Minister of Finance, who Customs and Excise fall under, taking certain steps, ensuring that those charged with the responsibility take certain steps, including, for example, the procurement of new scanners for the ports, etc., to try and stop that flow. But you will see when you get the regulations that one of the areas during this public period of public emergency that orders can be made of and that there will be certain focus on is prohibiting or restricting the possession or use by any person or body of persons of specified articles, which would include the firearms, but also controlling of harbors, ports, territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago, movement of vessels, transportation by land, air, water, control of transport of persons and things. So there is some element of focus on it. But again, I can't get into the operational specifics because that would jeopardize and lower the chances of success.
So people, of course,
rationale.
We have come to the end, of course, of this very irksome, this very boring, this very, of course, nauseating so-called press conference to announce, of course, a state of emergency that really and truly is an exercise in futility. That is why, of course, I'm wearing black tonight, because the PNM has collapsed. They call out state of emergency for nothing, to appease, of course, the businessmen who will be affected by a decision, and then telling us that you have suspended everybody's rights and that the police will only target, of course, those persons that they know. Well, if they knew that all the time, why didn't they do it before? And more than that, how come it is being pursued as not a knee-jerk response? It is a knee-jerk response because he spoke at one time as if it was something being planned. But it could not have been, because of the shooting outside the Besson Street and the subsequent murders in Laventille was very, very recent, as 2 days ago. As 2 days ago, people. So it could be nothing planned. It's a knee-jerk response that will not bear any fruit as they want. But of course, for those who want to listen and care to, of course, trust these people, waning as the trust is, incompetent as we know them to be, and cannot deliver and will not deliver in its present state. And notice what he said. At this stage, we are not looking at curfew. Bet your bottom dollar, having regard, of course, to what they have said, don't be surprised if curfew comes. But of course, tomorrow we look at the legal ramifications as far as the Constitution is concerned, and what, of course, it says as far as state of emergency is concerned. Have a wonderful rest of the night. Well, God bless, and thank you, of course, for this protracted program. It is a two-part, so this is the second part that we are engaged in. And of course, it is now minutes to 11 o'clock, but we have duty. We have a duty, and we have responded appropriately. Professor, good night. Let me take this as the final call. Professor, good night. Welcome.
My brother, good night to you, man.
Yes, good night to you as well, my friend.
I just joined the program. I just reached home and I tuned in.
Yes.
And I'm listening to this guy. I don't want to condemn him. I don't want to say anything contrary. But I listened to this guy on the air, and the Bible says, my people really perish for lack of knowledge, right? Now, this fella, he spoke about it is illegal to limit or limitize a person.
Yeah.
No.
and acting as Attorney General and unmeritoriously was given because he's connected to the PNM and close and the Prime Minister's handy boy gave him, of course, SC, Senior Counsel. And he said the only reason he gave him that, and he confessed that he did some work in whilst he was government, not outside of government, or before he came in, He get whilst he was working in the government. I mean, you give a man a serious. That's why they're making a mockery, of course, of senior counsel now, with people like these nincompoops holding that very, what I consider be once prestigious position. But go ahead, my friend.
But let me tell you something. One of the reasons I really call it because when I monitor myself as a gentleman, I never attended comprehensive and junior secondary. I went to a government school, my brother.
Right.
All right? And I am not equipped with knowledge towards the law as these guys. But what I'm saying, government, based on the situation of the crime, based on the level of crime that is taking place, whatever part of the country, I believe the government have the authority and the right to limit or to give that.
Obviously, that blatant statement that is nestled in what I consider to be total buffoonery. I wouldn't even say he tried to mislead. The man believe what he's saying. And ignorance, of course, is a nasty thing if you are that stupid.
Right? Now, you used a statement I was right. That is total askless foolishness, I would say.
Yeah, of course it is.
Right? And come on, man. This fella, I don't know. Why did
But the man has put together a cadre of incompetent, ignorant, asinine specimen of inhumanity in one cabinet. All of them recusing themselves and saying it's no big thing. Over 500 times, 1,000 times, no big thing. No big thing. And they must not face blue lights and silver bracelets, or in other words, lock up when the time comes and the government is changed, inevitably.
Yeah, but we had a soldier in the midst of the whole conference questioning them, and he couldn't handle that fella, Cameroon.
Yes, yes, because why the Prime Minister wasn't there? Why? You can't face the people? Why?
No, come on, but you expect him to be there.
No, I expect him to be there because he was bold-faced enough in 2020 when he, of course, called the state of emergency and telling public servants, listen, if you don't conform and you don't take the vaccine, you lost your work. He was telling them that when it is evil, when it is pernicious, when it is harmful to the population, he rises to the occasion, he Rowley, and like he concocts these evil thoughts, and because he has the power of the office of Prime Minister, he executes it. He has a predilection for total and absolute evil, not just thoughts but deeds in an office like that. He's a dangerous man.
But observe this, you see what he did? He put his two puppeteers to come forward.
His two puppeteers, yes, that's right, and he pulling the strings in the background. Yeah.
He put the puppets to stay because he knows verbally speaking they will come at him.
Of course. He can't defend that, just as how he can't defend his position on property tax or his position on the subsidies, or of course the three reports that he got on Petrotrin and just close it down because them conspire, of course, to protect him with respect to his name calling in the fake oil matter and the ensuing investigation, perversion of the course of criminal justice. That is what the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago is guilty of in this country.
Yes, for real. But one thing I should say, one thing I would say before I depart myself.
Yes.
She was going to be ashamed.
Of course he should be ashamed. A basic thing like that you don't know. You don't know, and acting as Attorney General is only Rowley promotes incompetence. He promotes, of course, mediocrity, and then claiming that somehow the PNM was there the longest and therefore are well suited for managing the affairs of the country when they should be relegated to the dustbin of political history in this country, having regard, of course, to the level of collapse. And the government itself in such a situation has in fact collapsed.
Yeah. What I would like to see in the history of Trinidad and Tobago is to see these guys in bracelets.
Yes, of course. I will revel. I will be elated. It will be a joyous moment, I'm sure, for the vast majority of Trinidad and Tobago, all the big tongue they have. Yes, it's just a matter of time. Hitler thought he would have been there forever too. Mussolini, Saddam Hussein and all of them, and of course Maduro thinking he is current and therefore he'll be there forever, but evil could never prevail over good. I end with that one.
Yes, my brother, God bless. Have a good
Thank
night.
you very much, of course, and have a good one as well. People, of course, we have come to the end. I will not take any more calls. It is already, of course, at just about 8 minutes to the hour of 11 o'clock. And of course, tonight they could do what they want. Who God bless, no man curse. And we will be unrelenting. The government of Trinidad and Tobago under Rowley and the PNM has collapsed. And they're ashamed to lie down. And of course, we will, of course, make their bed a bed of pickle. This is what, of course, just as how they gave Jesus Christ a crown of thorns, well, we'll make their bed a bed of pickle. They must have no easy time moving into the election. They could try to thief how much they want. They will never succeed because the population has had enough and has reached the zenith of their tolerance of this pack of reckless, brutal, inhumane, contemptuous, incompetent, and intellectually depraved, inhumane parasites. Yes, people, of course, we have come to the end. And of course, don't forget tomorrow morning the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself, as we continue, of course, with these and other matters.
Since you take over as Prime Minister, it's plenty pressure. We have to suffer, and you will do nothing better. Rowley really have to go. Oh, so Rowley really have to go. Oh, Rowley really have to go. Since you come in power, you is a big failure. Collapse the economy and do nothing for we. What you have to show, we don't really know. What you have to show, we don't really know. Sorry, Trinidad and Tobago, but Rowley really have to go.
This is Massive Go Sign, and I'm giving you an account.
Rowley man account. Rowley man account. Rowley man account. Rowley man account.
Hey!
Rowley mother planting garden down in La Romaine. Rowley mother working harder in the sun and rain. If you see this woman, she is nearly done, but the hard work she do, you need everything for she son. All the pipers thieving and doing what they want, forcing Rowley mother to take an account. All the pepper on the tree, all the bygone and the body, the plantain, the cucumber, the pumpkin, the zaboka, even all the okra that turn every month. Rowley mother, Rowley mother, Rowley mother house.
Joining us to discuss the state of emergency is opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley.
All we are saying, we question the option the government chose to respond. We are never saying that the government shouldn't respond. We are not saying that the government shouldn't fight crime vigorously. What we have been engaging is the option. And we have a duty to let the government explain to the country the nature of the option, the choice of the...
Joining us to discuss the state of emergency is opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley.
All we are saying, we question the option the government chose to respond. We are never saying that the government shouldn't respond. We are not saying that the government shouldn't fight crime vigorously. What we